Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Football Thunders, sponsored by Let Us Talk, the mental health charity using football to break down barriers, and the Proper Blokes Club, the group for men helping them to walk to better mental health and friendships. Coming up in this episode, we talk about Ralf Rangnick. I'm not sure how to say it, but that's my best guess so far. The best value for money signing ever, the best defensive midfielder. Pick, bench, sell makes it shithousery return. And we have, of course, the Tsar of shithousery is in the house. Talking of in the house, Ryan Scott's less than impressed, but more about that maybe later. Good evening, Ryan. Good afternoon. Hello.
Good evening,
Ryan. Dan Finch is there on camera as well. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm all right. Yeah, no, I'm okay. We'll leave
You're
it
in a better mood than Ryan at the moment.
Probably.
Shall we explain why Ryan's not in a good mood?
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there. We've just done it off there. Let's leave it.
No, but there is as we record this, there is a live going on, and Man United have just conceded the first goal against Arsenal, and it's contentious to say the least. We could have done a whole podcast on the rights and wrongs of what's just happened at that game, but we're not going to. We're going to move on. But first, Dan, you want to say something?
Yeah, this is a really quick shout out today. If you don't know, Charlie White, Wigan striker, who we spoke about on our season preview as one of League One's best players, sadly last week had a cardiac arrest at training. But he released a statement today, and I'll just read you the statement because I think it's nice to have some positivity in football. And although cardiac arrest is obviously negative, the things that he says is very nice. So he said, first and foremost, he of course has a sincere appreciation to the club medical staff and the NHS who've cared for him in his last week in hospital. But he feels it's important for his story and to tell supporters and the wider public the people that saved his life was the manager, Liam Richardson, and club doctor, Jonathan Tobin. He says, as you're aware, I collapsed last Monday and suffered a cardiac arrest and required CPR. I'm told if it wasn't for the quick response of my manager, I wouldn't be alive right now, and the following work by our doctor. I'll forever be grateful and actions of my teammates and other staff, and I'm here to tell players about it. Thankfully, just a few weeks ago, the training staff had received CPR, and it clearly helped to save my life. And I just thought that's when everyone talks about negativity in football, it's a bright thing that a manager jumped to his player's aid and saved the life of not only a footballer, but a husband and a dad.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Well done to both of those people and everyone else involved. Yeah, we've seen it. I think the awareness regarding that sort of thing is much bigger since the Moambo incident. Because I think we've discussed this before, defibrillators are now appearing everywhere, and more people are being trained. I can remember, you need to Google this, many years ago, David Longthorne, his name was, collapsed and died playing for York City. They've named a stand after him. His heart gave out, and no one had the training to keep him alive. Had he had possibly defibrillators and the like, or the trained start people around, he may have survived that. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert, but that's a thing. So it has moved on at a pace. And we've seen Christian Eriksen in the summer, of course, and a defibrillator got to work to save his life as well as physio. So, yeah, top work to everyone. Excellent. So, right, how do I say this fella's name? Come on in. Ralf Rangnick.
Yeah, Ralf Rangnick.
Coming in to Manchester United until the end of the season and then as a consultant. Is that right, apparently?
Yeah, he's got basically a 2.5-year contract, 6 months to the end of the season as first team coach.
Yep.
And then he goes into an advisory capacity. My guessing is it's basically a way of saying he's going to be director of football without upsetting Aaron Fletcher and John Murtough.
That appointment and him staying on after his term as the coach for this season, I think points the direction that the club want to go. And points possibly a style of football they want the club to play, because he's associated with a very particular style of football, isn't he? Which is the
Gegenpress.
Gegenpress. He is the one that everyone who practices the art of Gegenpress looks up to. He's apparently the master. Is it a case, do you think, first and foremost, that the board have thought our players have been a bit lazy lately? Let's get them chasing games properly. What do we think?
For me, I think he's just a manager, and not only a manager, but someone that even as director and stuff has always had a good record and as you said, a philosophy, which has worked wherever he's been. So I thought it was one that I didn't expect United to go with it, but I think it's a really good idea. He will obviously have a massive say on whoever the next manager is. well, I'd hope he has a massive say on whoever the next manager is. And I think it's a great appointment for United, especially consultancy, because as Ryan has said before, one of the big concerns for United is outside of their management, they don't have any options.
Yeah, and you leave it in the hands of, and I know it's easy to kick people, but the likes of Ed Woodward. Before Woodward and the others come along, who was the other guy before him? David Gill and Martin Edwards. Now, Martin Edwards, who was the chairman who took over from his father when Sir Alex was around, and David Gill, they were football men. There was football in their blood. I don't think with Ed Woodward, football was in his blood. He's just a good businessman, isn't he? He wasn't a football man. He wasn't an out-and-out footballer.
He is an exceptional businessman. He's made Manchester United a lot of money. Unfortunately, because he didn't know enough about football, that money wasn't spent correctly. But no, when it comes to commercial investment, he's been fantastic for Manchester United, despite what other Man United fans will have you believe.
But yeah, the Glazers will be probably over the moon at the job he's done. But people who are interested in the football and not the balance sheet necessarily and the share price will say it's been under Woodward. It's been a bit of a disaster, really, or not very good. But back to that's just what I think. I think because they've taken these sort of decisions, they're going to take it out of Woodward's or whoever's hands, because Woodward is due to leave, and it's going to be down to old Ralphie boy at some stage to have a big say in the next manager.
Before we let Ryan loose on his club, I just got a list of 11 players that Ralf Rangnick brought into teams that he's coached of.
Come on in.
Manuel Neuer at Schalke. Joshua Kimmich was signed as an 18-year-old for 500k. Ibrahim Konate and Dayo Upamecano were both bought for under £1 million by him. So he's got talent. David Alaba is a young left-back from Austria. Naby Keita, Marcel Sabitzer, Timo Werner, Roberto Firmino, and Sadio Mane. He's talent. He's talent.
And before we get into Ryan letting rip on all this, gossip surrounding Ralph in the Mirror today, up to £100 million in January to strengthen the squad. And in The Bild, which is a German publication, he could receive up to €10 million if he convinces Erling Braut Haaland to sign for Man United. Those are some of the rumours that have started already. So, I think the fact that he's looked up to by people like Jurgen Klopp it's a bit like Pep Guardiola looks up to Bielsa, doesn't he? Although Bielsa at Leeds, he's done okay, but they're having a tough time at the minute, aren't they? But I think, it could be a good appointment. It's a steadying appointment, and if he's staying on, at least it's someone above the manager who knows football, which is more than we can say about Ed Woodward. Ryan, I think, Dan and I, frankly, might switch our microphones off for 20 minutes. And if we do it for 40 minutes, you can do your 10 defensive midfielders while you're there as well. We can go off, have a cup of tea, knock one out here or there, and come back and still have time, have a shower and another cup of tea by the time you finish. Ryan, it's all yours.
Well, first of all, I'm just going to say everyone's praising this appointment. But what they seem to be glossing over the fact is Man United approached Mauricio Pochettino at Paris Saint-Germain and they rejected Manchester United's approach. And then all of a sudden, Ralf Rangnick is now the name that's come in. So the first choice Man United got knocked back for. Ralf Rangnick, everybody's focused on how players are playing as opposed to what Ralf Rangnick actually does. Because if you look at his coaching record, it isn't actually amazing. I think he's only won one trophy in his entire career or something. But it looks to me like he's been brought in essentially to restructure the club that's just been restructured. Because I think they had the right idea with what they were doing. However, they didn't put the right people in place. And I think now they've realized that the structures there, the people there don't have the experience to manage the structure effectively. So they brought in Ralf Rangnick to push him upstairs in 2 years to basically shadow Darren Fletcher and John Murtough to basically coach them in the upper roles that they're taking on, so that in 2 years he can leave with competent staff to do the job that they're not currently competent to do.
The thing I'd like to not argue back, but just say in terms of Ralf Rangnick's managerial history, coaching history, he's never been at this level that he's going to be at now. This is going to be the big teller. When you look at the clubs that he's been at and the record that he did, he was the best manager Leipzig had up until then. He was the man who took Schalke into the kind of European stage. Hoffenheim was difficult. He brought Hanover their first trip to Bundesliga in a long time. So he does well at his clubs. This is going to be interesting to see if he gets to Man United, which is a new level. He's never been like Leipzig are a good side, but they're not a massive football club. You know, they're 10, 15 years old, if that. So this is his big step. Can he do it now? If he can, all credit to him. It'll be very interesting to see who the next manager is. Who does he decide is the man for the next step?
Yes, that's the big thing. They've got plenty of time. They've got, well, I say plenty of time. They've got 6 months or so to get that, to make that decision, haven't they? And you never know. They could spring a surprise and make an internal appointment. That would just upset Ryan a little bit, wouldn't it?
I was going to say, I don't think there's anyone internal that can take the job.
Well, that's why I say it would upset you if they gave it to
It wouldn't upset me. Appointing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't upset me. I think people a little bit more focused on how things ended for Ollie and the fact that he was never good enough in anyone's eyes to actually fail to see what a good job he actually did in the end, because he managed to keep Man United in the Champions League places while overturning a really bang average squad and signing better players in the process.
Do you think Ollie, that was Ollie's level? He's not,
yeah,
because I didn't think he could take the club where the club needs to go.
Ollie was never going to get us a Champions League or a Premier League. He might have got us an FA Cup or a League Cup. That was never his, what's the right word?
Mandate.
Yeah, thank you. That was never his mandate. His mandate was to keep the club ticking over while they got rid of all the dead wood that Mourinho had signed and the millions of pounds worth of players that Van Gaal had signed
and the
that
most
were still loitering around.
The most important one was to bring back the, it's a phrase I don't like people throwing out because I think they throw it out too often, but it was to bring back the Man United spirit or the Man United way. They'd kind of gone off the how Man United should be done, and that was the idea. Bring back that feeling for the fan base rather than what they had under Mourinho.
But that happens with a lot of clubs. It's not just Man United. Tottenham have got. They like to see entertaining football. West Ham.
I don't mean on the pitch.
And even at Charlton, there is a Charlton way, which is 100%. If you're not good enough, we'll still applaud you as long as you've given 100%.
But I'm not talking on the pitch. I did say like that. Okay. I'm not talking about football. I'm talking about the wider club, how they interact with their fans, how their managers interact with media, blah blah blah. You know, just getting that feeling back of this is Manchester United. This isn't Jose Mourinho's Manchester United or Louis van Gaal's Red Army with his nonchalant bollocks. It's Manchester United.
Okay. I think the thing that I did that most people are overlooking is Man United. After the failure of David Moyes, the Man United board decided to go a different way, and they decided to appoint high-profile managers who demanded money to buy instant success. And because of the dynamic of the Premier League now, where you've got so many clubs able to challenge at the top level, whereas before it was just Man United and another during the Alex Ferguson era, Man United basically appointed Mourinho, Van Gaal and said, here's 500 million quid each, buy the players you need. And the youth wasn't being brought through at the same time. It was being pushed aside. So the identity of the club had been lost. So that's what Ollie brought back. In terms of Ralf Rangnick, I think Ralf Rangnick will carry on the work that Ollie's done. I just hope he can do it to a higher standard. I'll see him having a role with who becomes the next manager, but I think the next manager has already been decided. It's going to be Mauricio Pochettino. They were rejected at the moment because it's mid-season. I think at the end of the season, Mauricio Pochettino could well walk into Paris Saint-Germain and say, I don't really like it here. I want to leave. You can get a bucket full of money for me. And Paris Saint-Germain will go, thank you very much. Zinedine Zidane, are you ready? Yes, here we go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be Maurizio, as you said. So it'll be interesting to see how they, how it all works at Man United. Like, for me, if you gave me an open checkbook, I'd get Ten Hag. But I mean, you can't really argue if they're that desperate for Pochettino, they'll get him.
What I hope they will do is they will get Pochettino in. It depends on how you use the director of football system, because some people use it wrong. The director of football should basically be there to aid the manager, take the pressure off, do the stuff that the manager doesn't really have time to do anymore. However, some clubs go the opposite route of the director. decides everything from who the players that are signed to who drives the coach, to who does this, to who does everything. So I'm hoping what Ralf Rangnick will do is once Pochettino comes in, he will step away from being involved with the first team unless Pochettino needs him, and he will teach Darren Fletcher and John Murtoch how they need to go about doing their jobs.
Well, I think that's Ralph dealt with, and good and proper. And I think that the consensus is he's be okay, and Pochettino to come in next summer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So possibly they are getting their first choice, but what they're doing is they're settling for something with his agreement. He's fully aware he's not first choice, and on we go from there.
Just to close it off, I think what they've done is correct a mistake they made in the first place. When they appointed a director of football and that, it should have been someone like Ralf Rangnick instead of Darren Fletcher. So I think what they've done is realise they've made the error. Now they need to fix it.
Yeah, it's a tough ask for someone like Darren Fletcher to come into the club as at that high level with no experience at that high level. I think maybe they're asking a little bit too much of him. I don't know.
Absolutely, he had no qualifications to do the job.
Is he going to hang around and train with Ralph? This is the question.
That's what me and Dan have just been talking about.
We don't know. We don't know what his staff.
That must be what the consultancy role is for, because why else would they keep him on for 2 years afterwards? If for what purpose? Like I said, I think the consultancy thing is basically you will be our director of football, but not in title.
It sounds like a very, by the club, unusually, a very sensible move in the short, medium and long term.
As I said, they're correcting a mistake they made about a year or so ago.
Let's move on then. The best value for money signing ever. Well, I mean, I've got some very. I've got at least one that is that's Charlton based. It's pure and simple as that. It's got nothing to do with football in general. If you don't know football, Charlton, you won't have a clue who I think is the best value money for signing ever. But we're not talking about Jan Kermorgant, are we?
Or Darren Pratley, who's on my list.
We're talking about players that have, and I'll give you an example. I think I'll start you off with Vincent Kompany. When you look at how much he cost Man City, Hamburg to Man City for £6 million. £6 million. I think that's, in this day and age, that I would say represents good value.
It's, I mean, Man City hero, isn't he? That's, I think.
Captain,
did they not sign? Man United just scored. For people that are people that are listening, Ryan's hat. We're laughing because Ryan's arms just went up. Bruno Fernandes has just scored for Man United.
Oh, it's better we did something.
Vincent Kompany was signed at the same time that they signed Tal Ben Haim and Wayne Bridge.
Yeah, and we all know where Tal Ben Haim ended up. Charlton at one stage.
Absolute. Vincent Kompany is a Man City legend, and I don't think he's right now coaching. Is he coaching at Anderlecht but not manager? He was manager. I think they moved him on because he was struggling, but I think he stayed in the coaching setup.
I think the reason they moved him on is because he didn't have his pro license with UEFA. So they had to step him. If I remember rightly, he started off as a coach, became their manager, didn't have a pro license, so had to step back into being a coach again, while his assistant manager, who had a pro license, basically became the manager, but Vincent Kompany was picking the team.
Oh, okay. Well, he's given his captain's armband to Josh Cullen, and that's a winner for me in any day. But
I'm totally agreement. Yeah. Okay, so Vincent Kompany, we think another one that I'll throw at you, costing £1.5 million from a small Norwegian club called Molde to Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 1.5 million. He won a Champions League final.
He's a good shout. He's not made my list, but it's a good shout.
Okay, I'm going to give you another one. Seamus Coleman, Sligo Rovers to Everton, £60,000.
60 grand, is that
60
all?
60 grand. That is
cool. That's a really good shout.
He's captain of the club at the moment. He's been there for donkeys, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's not very good, but speaking of donkeys, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. He joined in 2009. Another one for £1 million at the time from, I think, League Two or League One. It became an England international. £1 million, Fleetwood Town to Leicester City.
Ain't no money.
Ain't no party like a Vardy. I mean, yeah, Jamie Vardy, gotta be. Surely that's in from a striker's point of view, and how much a striker costs. Come on, deal with that.
Yeah, I can go one better than that if you really want me to.
Go on.
Me too.
Very easy. Same price.
Go on.
From Leeds to Manchester United. My pick as the best value for money signing ever. And this year, Eric Cantona took a team from being almost winners to not only being winners, but to set a period of dominance that's been unrivaled to this day.
And then there was that famous January night when he became a hero to Charlton fans when he decided to take out a Palace fan. On that basis alone, I'm with you all the way.
I could do a minute's applause for him there, to be honest.
Yeah,
if it does help, Eric Cantona does have a flag at Charlton games.
It does, yes.
And I'll give you my second.
Because he lifted that Man United team, didn't he? He took that Man United team and gave them the confidence and the swagger to become champions, didn't he?
He was the missing piece.
The missing link.
That's all it was. We had everything in that side: power, strength, pace. The only thing we were missing was that little bit of style, that little bit of class to finish it off. Speaking of that side, the other one is Mr. Peter Schmeichel for 550 grand.
It's not a bad bit of business, that is it?
And if I really want to squeeze in another one, Dennis Irwin, 800 grand.
Peter Schmeichel was described by Sir Alex as the bargain of the century.
You can't argue with it, can you? When you look at his career overall, I mean, I know on this podcast I've downplayed him because he's mad and he's not as good as Edwin van der Sar was. But he's still an icon of Manchester United and an icon of football anywhere. Yeah, it was a ridiculous price, but that was what prices were like back then. You know, that's the way it was. Football's come so far now. If you were to try and buy an Eric Cantona nowadays, you're looking at about 150, 200 million, not a million quid. And if you want someone like a Peter Schmeichel in his pomp now, how much did Juve pay for Gianluigi Buffon?
How much did Chelsea play for? What's his name? The Kepa. What's his face?
Kepa.
How much? We're talking 60 plus million. Yeah.
70 million pound, I think they paid.
Okay. I'm going to give you another one here. A Frenchman from AC Milan to Arsenal for 3.5 million pounds. Roy Keane's best mate, Patrick Vieira. 3.5 million pounds for Patrick Vieira. Come on.
He's on my list. I mean, yeah, that's not a bad deal, is it?
At the peak of his prime, how much would he have been worth?
Oh, shit ton.
You're looking at about 80 million. Easily.
So that's one of the greatest bargains of all time. £3.5 million, I would argue, is a bargain.
Can I hit my two?
Go on.
I don't have a big list because I won't lie, I forgot we did this and this was a bit of a late push for me today. So, because I was too busy focused on defensive midfielders. So my first one, the price tag is a bit high. Well, not high, but N'Golo Kante cost Liverpool £5 million.
Yeah.
Leicester, sorry, £5 million.
I was going to say, when did he go to Liverpool?
He got stole. How much did he go for?
I think it wasn't that much. I think he didn't even go
35 million pounds and 32 million pounds for.
They made 27 million profit
and walked and in that time also won a league, a Premier League
and a World Cup,
and he won a World Cup. Yeah. And he's arguably be involved in our next category.
Yeah, we'll see him later. I'm sure of it.
I'm sure we'll see him later. Other ones.
Hold on. I
want to know your personal ones.
Yeah, hold on.
Well.
There's one more that I want to bring up because I don't think it'll get them mentioned because it's Scottish football.
Oh, go on.
Henrik Larsson cost Celtic 600k.
Actually, yeah. Went on to play for Barcelona. Fair comment.
And Man United.
And also one that won't get mentioned because I think people won't necessarily see him as a fantastic player. However, I think James Milner to Liverpool for nothing is also a fantastic bit of business.
Did they get him for nothing?
They got him for nothing.
Wow, that's a fantastic bit of business, to be fair.
I mean, all right, business, not necessarily on footballing terms, business terms. John Stones left Barnsley to Everton for £3 million. They sold him for £47 million.
But that one's pure financials because he was shit then and he's still shit now, so it doesn't matter.
Didn't they do similar with Jolie and Lescott as well?
Yeah, Nicolas Anelka from Paris Saint-Germain to Arsenal, £500,000.
Ryan Giggs to Manchester United from Manchester City for nothing.
Tim Cahill, Millwall to Everton, £1.5 million. And the galling thing about that was he was signed, sealed, and delivered as a Charlton striker player, and Everton David Moyes sneaked in at the last minute. And Kirbishley's, but one of Kirbishley's big regrets is he didn't make Cahill sign when he should have done. The contract wasn't ready for him to sign.
A comment on N'Golo Kante. Obviously, we said he was worth £5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Arsene Wenger did an interview not long ago with Ian Wright. And Ian Wright said, who was the player you wished you signed? And he said that he had a deal to sign N'Golo Kante when he was at Bologna for 300 grand. But they pulled out of it because they hadn't seen him like in the flesh. So they pulled out of it.
How good is that?
And then I think it's Caen. I don't know how to pronounce Caen.
Mm-hmm.
They came in with a bigger bid, and he went to Caen, but he was so close to being an Arsenal player for 300k.
Yes.
Another signing, value for money. Now I was watching it. There's a thing on YouTube, and it's David Dean, the Arsenal chairman, with Arsene Wenger in conversation with Dermot O'Leary. It's quite good. And the story, it's about Sol Campbell. And it's Sol Campbell on a free from Spurs to Arsenal, which I thought was a terrific deal. But the funny thing in the story was that they did not let anyone know. No one had a sniff at who Arsenal were signing. They kept it so quiet. They literally had him behind a curtain in Arsenal kit. They invited the press. The press thought it was a crap announcement, someone rubbish, because they'd heard no whispers. So they sent their second best journalists along. The top journalist didn't go. One of the journalists who did go was a guy from the Mirror who was a Tottenham fan. And when the curtain pulled back and he saw Sol Campbell, he just shouted out, "Sol Campbell, you utter," rhymes with something to do with next Tuesday. Well, it is. See you next Tuesday. He gave it the big beans, because he really wasn't happy. This was a journalist who was supposed to be impartial. But yeah, Sol Campbell to Arsenal, I think, hell of a deal.
So you talk about my favourite one.
Yeah, this is what
I think. In current day, so this one I say now, it will tell in 5 years' time, 2 years' time, whenever this person moves on, we'll tell if it was. Erling Haaland cost Dortmund £18 million. They're going to make a serious profit on that kid, aren't they? It's going to be tasty.
Yeah, I mean, it's what are we looking at? What's the latest quote for price for him? Ryan, do you know? 50 mil?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of this year, he's got a release clause of £69 million. That is why nobody went for him this summer, despite everything that goes on. He's got a release clause, because that's how they get their players. They bring them over, and they're like, they do it in all of the Red Bull clubs. They're like, we'll give you a release clause so that like you can move quickly up.
It's Bundesliga law as well.
Is it Bundesliga law? Oh.
Yeah, every Bundesliga player has to have a release clause. Obviously, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be, I think, like Lewandowski is something stupid like 300 million, but every player does need one in their contract.
I didn't know that was in Germany. I knew it was employment law in Spain.
Yeah,
but
Germany as well.
But if you're looking at money and making money, how much did Manchester City get for Jadon Sancho when he went to Dortmund? And then how much did Dortmund get?
Yeah, I mean, Dortmund had a big... that one was value for money. Dortmund.
75 million quid they got for him. And
so, I imagine Dortmund would have only paid...
Maximum?
No, not even that, because it would have probably been an in-court job, because he was 17,
he was a kid,
18.
so you're probably looking about 500 grand.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
With really add-ons, possibly. Let's look it up. Out of all those signings, is Cantona your favourite for you? Is that the one for you? You know, the best value for money as far as you're concerned, regardless of if anyone's heard of the player or whatever. Is that?
My brain says yes. My heart says no. My heart will always belong to Lee Sharp, signing from Torquay to Manchester United. I think that was for peanuts as well. I think it was about 250 grand or something silly like that. I'll have to Google it. But Lee Sharp was one of my heroes growing up. He's one of the players I idolised. He was a young kid anyway. So, you know, that one will always be my favourite, no matter what happens. He was the person that I became a Man United supporter for.
Right. Jadon Sancho left Watford at the age of 14 for an initial £66,000 to Man City, rising to £500,000 with add-ons. He then transferred to Borussia Dortmund for in the region of £8 million.
Okay,
Still made a massive profit.
They've 10 times.
Just to clarify, because I've just quickly Googled it, Lee Sharp cost the Man United 200 grand.
From Torquay United, wasn't it?
Another one that the price tag I think is irrelevant, but for the player he was, someone that Ryan has already spoke about on this pod, Edwin van der Sar cost United £2 million.
Yes,
that's decent. That's
not
decent.
bad.
And I think, if I remember rightly, he went to, how much did he go to Fulham for? I think it was more than that.
He was a world-class keeper at the time, wasn't he?
He was amazing. Juventus only sold him because they got Gianluigi Buffon and they wanted
7 million.
Yeah.
7 million.
So Man United pulled Fulham's pants down because we got him for even less than they signed him for.
Okay, my best value for money signing, and it's purely emotional, and it's as I've mentioned him already, Jan Kermorgant came in on a free for Charlton. Dan's shaking his head, but that's my.
Sorry, no, that's not because of Jan. I've just read something, but it's NFL related.
Okay,
so
but Jan, and I vividly remember being in the tunnel at the Valley on a Tuesday night when Charlton were going great guns with the Paul Hayes and Bradley White Phillips. The night we signed Kermorgant on a free, we were handed a piece of paper and it said Charlton have signed Jan Kermorgant on a free transfer. First thing we all did was get on Google and try and find out who the hell he was. And the only thing that kept coming up was a crap penalty in the playoff semi-finals for Leicester. And the fact that Leicester hated him. At no stage when he signed did we have any idea of what an absolute legend he would become, as far as I'm concerned. And it's bromance and I don't care.
Yeah, so when we signed Jan Kermorgant, Pete's love child, we went to a Sheffield United game and Jan came on and I turned to Pete and said, he's going to score any minute. He'll probably score from this corner. I think we'd seen him once. I think he'd made his debut at MK Dons. This was the next game. Pete laughed at me and told me just to watch the game. Stevens whipped the ball in, Jan scored, and then Pete had an argument with some Sheffield United security men because the Sheffield United fans are throwing coins at us, but that's irrelevant. Jan's a hero.
Jan's a hero. He becomes an instant hero, but that's not what made me love the man. It's just the way he played football. He was such an underrated player. That game also, one of the funniest goals I've ever seen. And it wasn't because it was a strange goal. It's because as Bradley Wright Phillips is about to hit the ball into the back of the net, he knows he's going to score. He knows so it's so obvious he knows he's going to score because he was giggling as he hit it. You could hear him giggling. You could see him laughing his cock off. Absolutely howling, wasn't he, Dan?
It's a beautiful image. I remember watching him as he went round, and you noticed him laughing and thinking that's taking the piss. He's just walked it round the keeper. I wish I can remember who. I have a feeling their keeper might have been someone, Anthony Amy or someone. So it was a reasonable name, and Bradley walked around him like he was me.
Went round him, danced around him, started laughing, and put the ball in the back of the net. Glorious. We owned Sheffield that season. Ryan, have you got any further personal favourites? Or Dan, have you got? We've done yours, Ryan. Dan, have you got a person?
No. I think mine's N'Golo Kante. I genuinely think the player he's become is. Yeah, I love N'Golo Kante. I have a bit of a crush on him. Again, he'll come up in the next segment. £5 million for his quality. The fact that he only went to Chelsea for 32, I think, is a bit of a good deal in today's market as well.
Excellent. Right, let's put a cap on that one. I think the next one is best defensive midfielders. I'm just going to take a back seat, let you two get on with it. And if you've missed out any of the ones that I've got on my list, then I might bring up a couple of Olden but Goldens. So I think I'll leave it down to the youth. In it, Daniel, you're going first, are you?
Yeah, Darren Pratley, done. Move on. Let's go. Next one.
About Stan Kishishev when he played there. Thank you.
Just Darren. No, but so anyway, I have a feeling a lot of the names that me and Ryan have are the same. But I'll start with the top of my list. Ryan, last week when we moved on to defensive midfielders, Ryan made the comment that he knew exactly who I was going to pick and said, was he French? He was. Makelele's on my list. That will shock absolutely nobody.
Is he the only Frenchman on your list?
Defensive midfielder. No, because Kante's on the list too.
Is there another one?
No, because a lot of
Okay.
them are probably out of my range, but they might be on Ryan's if he's a 90s boy.
Well, no, I'm a bit surprised because that's not actually the French central midfielder I was thinking that Dan was going to give the special mention to.
All right, can I have a guess who I think you think, Ryan, that the Dan was going to say?
If you say Paul
Go
Pogba,
for
I'm
it.
leaving.
I'm thinking the water carrier himself, Didier Deschamps.
No,
Right, go on then.
no, I thought he was going for a Charlton connection and he was going to choose Coquelin because obviously he was with you guys.
He's not that good.
You know what? I disagree because after he came back from Charlton, there was a couple of years where he was really top dog at Arsenal, and then for some reason, the manager came in, just didn't. I think it was Emery who just came in, didn't like him, sold him.
I don't understand. As I've said this before to Dan, his first appearance came on as a sub against Leeds United away at Ellen Road. He come on and he walked onto the pitch and he bossed it. He just bossed it for the last 20 minutes of the game. And I remember talking to the manager, Bob Peters, afterwards. Off record, we'd done an interview and it had been, well, a good performance. And I just said, I literally said to him, how the hell have we got Coquelin playing for us? And he went, I know, we asked, they gave. He said, didn't think we were going to get him. He's way better than anything we've got. And he was. And Johnny Jackson said, played with him a handful of times, puts him in his team, all-time Charlton team. He's that good.
We played Millwall at the Valley, and any Charlton fan knows that us playing Millwall was
horrible.
A slog. Yeah, it's not nice. We haven't won since I've been alive.
Pretty.
So that's that. But
not funny. It's not
Francis Coquelin, Francis Coquelin played against Millwall at the Valley, and it was the most boring 0-0 because we're shit and we had Francis Coquelin. So we were shit at doing anything. But every time they tried to do something, Francis Coquelin was on the pitch. So it was the most boring 0-0 ever. But it was all down to Francis Coquelin. So as much as he's not on my list, I do love him.
But he's not going to get on that list because he's not proven himself to be the quality of the list that we've got so far. Who else have you got, Dan?
So
can we just stick with my Didier Deschamps for a second, though? Is that not arguable?
He's on my list. He made my list. Absolutely, he was part of the reason why Zinedine Zidane was able to do the things that he did, because without him, he wouldn't have been able to do it. It's in much the same way that Pogba now relies on N'Golo Kante in France to be able to make himself look really good. It was the same with Deschamps and Zidane.
Maybe Man U need to side N'Golo Kante then.
Well, you should say that. He's not been in the Chelsea team for a while.
That's an improvement. That's an improvement on Fred. I'll give you that.
I don't know. Fred got man of the match the other day, though. Let's be fair. We've stuck the boot into Fred enough times, but hands up to Fred. The last couple of games, he's done okay, hasn't he?
Yeah, every horse has its day.
I suppose.
So,
yeah, come on in, Dan.
My next one is modern day, recent. Someone I don't think gets the credit because of the team he played for and their expansive style of football, but Fernandinho at Man City.
Mm.
He's
a fair shot.
He's 36 now,
and he's still bossing it.
He's still one of the midfielders in the Premier League, and also played many times out of position. I really like Fernandinho. I mean, I know Rodri has kind of taken his spot now, but Fernandinho had been at the club a long time. As I said, he was getting on 35, 36, and only recently has he lost his spot. So I think he will never get the credit he maybe deserves because of who he's around. But I also. Like
if I remember rightly, he didn't start that well at City either, did he?
No.
He wasn't very good at first.
Okay. Yeah, now you got an argument there. You got more?
Trust me, I've got more. Then going back to a few weeks ago, we discussed kits and we discussed AS Roma. Now, one of the players that helped me fall in love with AS Roma, Daniel De Rossi. Oh, what a boy.
Animal.
What a player Daniel De Rossi was. Another footballer who I loved. Who was I talking about the other week? And I said the reason I loved watching him is because he just used to kick the shit out of people.
Lorenzo Amoruso at Rangers.
Same. Amoruso. Same for De Rossi and Gattuso, who's also on the list for some reason. Just watching him smash into people was absolutely fine with me. And also for De Rossi, I don't know if you've seen the clip when Italy didn't make the last World Cup. The manager wanted to put De Rossi on with like 10 minutes left, and he grabbed the manager by the throat and told him that he doesn't put him on, he puts Insigne. The manager then forced De Rossi on, and obviously Italy missed all. But De Rossi, not only is he fucking bonkers, also a great footballer.
Okay.
And then the last two on my list, like, top tier, Roy Keane.
Yeah,
Man United. I mean, don't really need to explain. I think we've talked about Roy Keane enough on here. Roy Keane, and Andrea Pirlo.
No, he was a playmaker. He wasn't a defensive midfielder.
Yeah,
he sat deep towards the back. When he's at Milan, that last run, he played in front of the back four.
Yeah, because he's fucked.
But that just made him a deep line playmaker.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
He wasn't a defensive midfielder.
And one that everyone would say, I always have one that I disagree with. I'm not having Sergio Busquets. I'm sorry. If you put me around those players, I'd be good too. Right off you go.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on Sergio Busquets.
First one I'm going to bring up. He's not made my list, but it's a bit of a contentious one for me. So I'm going to see what you guys think. No. Patrick Vieira, would you say he was a defensive midfielder?
Yes.
And he should be up on that list.
And I'm going to disagree with the both of you. And I'm going to claim that he was a box-to-box midfielder. And the man that was next to him was actually the defensive midfielder. Yes.
Well, now I think what you'll find is they took it in turns.
I think Petit's massively underrated.
I think you'll find they took it in. They took it in turns. If one bombed forward, the other would sit back, and vice versa. That's how those two played. That's what was so successful about them. So at times they were defensive midfielders, and at times they were attacking midfielders. But you can't deny that those two could put a tackle in. They could seriously put a tackle in, a defensive midfielder's tackle in, which is an essential part of the defensive and break-up play. And they did that, and then they could release each other, but they both had an attacking bent about them that meant that they could pick a pass. So they were both gifted defensive midfielders, I think. Daniel?
The other one that so when I did my research for this, one that kept coming up that I in no way agree with, Nigel de Jong kept coming up. I'm sorry.
No.
Why?
No, I don't think he was. He was just a thug, wasn't he?
He's not a good. He was just not good, was he? I mean,
no.
Well, no. To be fair, he started off as a right back, who then got moved into central midfield. He did all right in central midfield, but he was nowhere near the caliber of players that we're talking about, in my opinion. I'll come on to another one. I don't like bringing this name up, but I have to bring this name up.
Before you say that, Cristiano Ronaldo's just scored his 800th career goal. Just scored it.
Okay, I must be on a time lag then.
Oh, you're just through different.
I was going to say, I'm on a time lag then because nothing's happened yet.
Oh, well, he's going to score.
Oh, well, you're about to score.
He's about to score his career goal. Carry on, yes.
The name I'm going to bring up, I don't like him as a player. As a manager, he's been very successful, but as a player, I don't like him. And his name is Diego Simeone.
Can't argue with him.
I don't like what he did to David Beckham.
Oh, so then you shouldn't like Cristiano Ronaldo either, really? Hey, that little wink. That was
no, because I don't like Wayne Rooney, so I don't care about that one.
That Ronaldo, teammate. That Ronaldo wink was 100 times worse than anything Diego Simeone did. I've got to tell you, that is your own teammate. He's just he's gone off, and you're having a laugh and a joke about it. Really? No.
Shithousery, though, isn't it? So you've got to respect it on a level.
Oh, yeah,
but yeah,
there's a certain level where you have to accept it.
But Diego Simeone, I think he's up there, definitely. Yeah, I agree.
There's one that I don't think Dan's probably heard this name, but I know Pete will. There was a certain Brazilian man who was the most un-Brazilian Brazilian you've ever met in your life.
Dunga.
Can you name that man? Yes.
Dunga.
For me,
on my list.
I think he was probably the best defensive midfielder of all time for the simple fact of playing in that team that he played in over the years, and he had some phenomenal players in with him. Rivaldo, Ronaldo, Romario, the list goes on and on. He basically had two defenders and him to defend, and he basically ran a midfield on his own.
I would argue,
because everybody else was piling forwards, including the fullback.
Brazilian side would not have been as successful without that man playing.
Just had to clarify, I do know who Dunga is, but I think only because he managed Brazil. But as you said, Brazil, another name came into my head that I don't think will ever get again. Another one that I like defensive midfielder. It's a position that I just like to watch. And when I was younger, Arsenal, cool. Gilberto Silva was the name I was going to shout out. I like Gilberto Silva.
Wenger loves him.
Underrated.
Wenger
He was
absolutely
quality.
love him. He says the Rock. He's the Rock that team was built around. Underappreciated by many Arsenal fans as well. That's a good shout.
I'll give you another name, Rodrigo Possebon.
Do you remember Rodrigo Possebon?
He was Brazilian. He wasn't good, but he was Brazilian.
Talented in Charlton. Have had some defensive midfielders. Pete, your favourite defensive midfielder at Charlton?
Oh,
and if you don't say Christian Bielik, then me and you are having an argument.
Christian Bielik is there, up there. Chris Powell had a thing about defensive midfielders when we went 1-0 up and there was 20 minutes to go, and it would be Dorian De Vries would come on and sit in front of the back four. He was the centre back. He was the centre back who would just cause mayhem. It was as predictable as it was, just so predictable. You just knew that 20 minutes to go, 1-0 up. We're hanging on for dear life. Oh, he's warming up. Here we go. Dorian De Vries coming on. That's how it went.
There was breaking news. Arsenal have just scored again.
Yeah, no, we were trying to give you the. We
were hinting you. There was a game. Charlton played Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, and Ricardo Fuller had scored. The Charlton Palace. We were all over them. We were dominating them. We had Royce Wiggins was playing left wing and making them look stupid. Ricardo Fuller scored a screamer. And I thought, I'm going to watch Charlton beat Palace at Selhurst Park. Then 60 minutes comes up. I look over to the bench and I thought, oh, for fuck. The board goes up. Wagstaff comes off. De Vries comes on. And Palace win 2-1. I was thinking, fuck off.
Bielik is the one, though, Chris. He anchored that League One side that got promotion. Another one that was very brief at Charlton, but shined brightly in that brief time. Diego Poyet sat in that role, and it's just a crying shame what happened to his career. It's his own fault because he went for the money at West Ham and the big time, never made it under Big Sam, and then I think he's now a weightlifter or something, or he does something. He plays.
He's a
bodybuilder now. But as a defensive midfielder, for so young, he had it all in front of him, and he squandered it. I would say possibly.
Alex
Song. Well, we saw him. He came to Charlton as on a loan, and he was a walking red card. I mean, he couldn't look at a player without getting booked. When he first came to Charlton, he came to Charlton on loan, and I think he got sent off. Christ knows how many times, but he was class as well. Class. Coquelin, obviously.
I'd like to give a special mention to Darren Fletcher, because before Darren Fletcher got sick, I think he was on his way to becoming a far bigger player than people gave him credit for. Fergie would deliberately pick him for the big games against the big players because he knew he would do a job.
Then the complete opposite of Darren Fletcher, someone in the Man United team that emerged at a similar time, that I thought that man should never wear a Man United shirt in his life. No. Tom Cleverley.
Not
no
a
stage was he a Man United player,
but yeah.
No stage in anyone's. I know one or two get through, but like Ralph Milne being signed by Ferguson. But Tom Cleverley is the most non-Man United player I've ever seen in a Man United shirt, other than Fred when he's bad.
Ryan made a comment to me about about 3 or 4 years ago now, and the more I think about it, the more I think he nailed it. Tom Cleverley in English football, not great. I think if you put him in on the continent,
he's good.
Could have been a very good player. I think that's to the style that would suit him.
Technically, extremely gifted. I'd like to give Nicky Butt a shout out as well, because he was an understudy for so long. But I like Nicky Butt.
I thought Nicky Butt was a very good defensive midfielder. You don't. Unfortunately, he had Roy Keane.
Roy Keane and Paul Scholes in front of him. You're not getting in.
Yeah, it's a shame, but. And I thought he went to the wrong club with Newcastle.
Went to Newcastle, got injured.
Wrong club for me.
If you just look at his performance in that Champions League final, when we didn't have Scholes and we didn't have Keane, and he was in there with David Beckham in the centre of midfield, he was phenomenal.
But he was good enough to be in there, regardless of who, whether Roy Keane
or
Scholes.
I think that's the point that Ryan's making.
Yeah, I know. It was totally good. I'm emphasising it, that he was totally good enough. He wasn't out of place in that Man United side. When he came in, he never looked out of place playing. I don't think he looked out of place playing for England when he played for England.
No, he didn't. He was a very underrated player, in my opinion.
Can I give you the most overrated defensive midfielder in history? His name's
Go
Eric
on.
Dyer.
Overrated footballer in general.
I don't get how he's got an England cap. I don't get how he's playing for Tottenham. I just don't get it. I just don't know. I don't rate him in any way, shape or form. Whether he plays defensive midfield or centre-back, he shouldn't be anywhere near a Premier League side. He's Championship at best.
David Batty, I'll give another overrated one.
Yeah, no, David Batty was decent. David Batty was decent.
Anyway,
Without David Batty, Blackburn and Leeds United are not winning league titles. Seriously.
I've just thought of another name that's not on this list that should be Xavi Alonso.
Not Mikel.
No, not Mikel. Sadly, I saw another one we've seen play for Charlton. Mikel doesn't
Xavi
make the
Alonso's
list.
a tricky one because I wouldn't quite have him down as a traditional defensive midfielder. He's more in the Busquets reign of more of an anchor man than a defensive midfielder. But yeah,
It's the same position.
Can I chuck a few names at you?
go on.
Graham Souness.
Yeah, not before my time.
Yeah, too young. A defensive midfielder who liked to. One of the hardest players to play football. First appearance for Rangers, he got sent off. YouTube his first ever tackle for Rangers and his first ever red card. That tells you all you need to know about Graham Souness. Played in that Liverpool side that dominated Europe in the late 70s and 80s. Another one, Edgar Davids. What do we think? Because I think, is he a bit overrated? He was decent. But
No. I thought he was amazing, but I wouldn't have had him down as a defensive midfielder. He was a box-to-box warrior. From watching him at Juve, he just pummeled people into submission with pace and power. I wouldn't have had him as a defensive midfielder.
I've had it from someone who's played alongside him, with him and for him, that he was an utter twat. I'm not going to mention the Dagenham wingers.
I watched
Barnet wingers. Barnet.
I watched an interview with a former Barnet player, ironically.
Oh.
Jamal Lowe did a podcast and he said that they did a training session where Edgar Davids was pinging the balls around and basically if they didn't copy him, they were getting fined. So he wanted players of conference Premier.
No,
if they weren't pinging 60-yard balls, they were being fined.
They were League Two at the time.
No, this is when they went down to the conference. Jamal Lowe was saying in the interview that they went down. This is in pre-season to get ready for the conference. If you were pinging, when he'd have a drill where he'd put a ball down, he'd get his coach to stand the other end of the field, and you had to ping the ball to him. If you didn't, you were fined.
I sat on a tube train from Watford back to London with a former player of his who was at the time was one of his then current players. And we sat on that tube and he spent 20-30 minutes slagging off Edgar Davids. The players hated him. But as a player, decent.
There's one name that I kept coming up from, not from my generation, more from yours. And I might absolutely butcher the pronunciation. Lothar Matthäus?
Lothar Matthäus, I was coming to him. Lothar Matthäus, unbelievable. World Cup winner. But he could get forward and score goals. Look at his goals from the 1990 World Cup. There was a goal he scored in the stadium in Milan that was out of this world. An unbelievable player. Wasn't he substituted in the 1999 European Cup final because they thought they'd won it, and he sat on the bench while Bayern Munich self-destructed?
Yep.
If I remember rightly. Because that was the crowning moment. That was going to be the finish of his career. I'm finishing on a high. I'm winning the European Cup, beating Man United. And there was a picture of him on the bench looking less than happy at the end of the game. Less than happy as the second goal went in.
The picture from that game that is burnt forever in my mind is a central defender by the name of Sami Kufor, who played for Bayern Munich. He was laying on the floor on his hands and knees, beating the turf with his fists because he could not believe they'd lost. No, that is forever burnt in my mind.
I was watching a program about the Champions League final the other day, that Champions League final. And when I looked at, when Man United lift the trophy and you see it?
Yeah.
One of the players at the front is Jonathan Greening.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's one of those rare people. He's one of those rare people who never played a minute's worth of Champions Leagues, but has got a medal.
I was cracking up. He was on the bench. I had to Google it. It turns out he was on the bench.
And do you know who parted hardest out of all that team?
Try that again.
The substitute, David May. He loved every minute of it.
Oh, that man to cock.
Absolutely. Apparently, was the last one off out of the bar in the absolutely stellar. I'm a European Cup winner. He sat on the bench. But Greening, really, he's got a Champions League medal.
500, I think it was 500 grand we got him after we signed him from York after they did us royally in the cup. I think they did us about 3-0 and we signed him. And yeah, he ended up on the bench for the final and got a Champions League winners medal.
I'll tell you who's got a Premier League medal. His name's Ben Hamer.
Scott Carson too.
Scott Carson. Ben Hamer's got a Premier League medal for
Leicester.
For getting his arse numb. I've got another name. One more name.
Hold on, he shouldn't have a medal.
He's got one.
If he didn't play a game.
Yeah, but the club. He played one game. He played one game.
But the rules changed. The rules changed.
I thought it was supposed to be 10 games.
So you get a medal they give out medals for everyone that has played more than 10 games. However, the club can then purchase.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
For the rest of their squad. So technically, anyone that has featured will get them. Because wasn't there a player that they had until January, and then they buggered him off, and he only played like 8 games. I can't remember who it was, but they sent him a medal.
Yeah, it happens. Most clubs, the entire first team squad will get a medal.
Because I remember when the season either before or after that, was it Cambiasso that played and then went on?
Oh, about defensive midfielders. Hello.
Yeah, hang on. There's a name actually. Yeah.
Someone that moved on in the January.
Yeah.
And had only played a handful of games, then got a medal because he played. It was someone stupid as well, like Gökhan Inler or something. I can't remember.
Frank Rijkaard's my last submission. Frank Rijkaard was up there. Let me tell you.
Going back to Lothar Matthäus, just very briefly, it's reminded me of someone else that maybe should have been on this list but didn't make it. And that's Matthias Sammer, because he was supposed to be Lothar Matthäus's heir apparent at Dortmund.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
Whatever happened to him, he didn't make it, did he?
No, he did okay. He had a decent career, but he didn't reach the heights of Lothar Matthäus, because you'd have to go some, I think, to get anywhere near Lothar Matthäus.
Well, I've just found out who the player was that got a Premier League medal for no apparent reason.
Go on.
Paul Konchesky.
Was it really?
Yeah. He was at Leicester on loan and started the season. So he got a Premier League medal.
There you go. Are we done with defensive midfielders?
I believe so.
We are. It's time to pick, bench, sell.
Oh Jesus! This is Ryan's favourite part of the week. He's in a whole week of this bollocks.
Well, you both have actually got it really lucky this week, because last weekend was my 40th birthday, so I was away for the whole weekend. So I haven't had time to go through Charlton's lists of central defensive midfielders, and
there's not that many,
and torture you all with it. So.
It's Coquelin all the way through, just saying.
Yeah.
Coquelin,
Bilic on the bench, everybody else can fuck off.
You both get a pass this week. I'm not prepared on this one.
He's giving you the right answer, in fairness.
Daniel.
Yes.
Roy Keane, N'Golo Kante, Claude Makelele.
I'm starting Makelele. That should be a shock. Absolutely no.
Right. Keane or Kante?
I'd bet... So this is the question: are we talking just straight football, or are we talking all incumbent?
Defensive midfielder. So you're picking them as a defensive midfielder. You're picking the position defensive midfielder.
So actually, that doesn't really matter. I'm probably going to have Roy Keane on the bench.
He's not going to be. At the end of the day, he's not.
Golo.
At the end of the day, he's not going to be happy about that, is he?
Although I don't know, I might put Golo on the bench, but I'm starting Makelele regardless. No, you know what? Sod it. N'Golo Kante's on the bench. Roy Keane's going. Sorry, Roy.
Oh, I've assassinated the defensive midfielder. At the end of the day, really?
Roy Keane's being sold. Yeah.
Ryan, same names.
Roy Keane starts for me, not only because of his qualities as a defensive midfielder, but also his captain credentials. I think he's probably been the best captain that Manchester United have had since Brian Robson. And since Roy Keane's retired, I don't think we've had a captain on his level. N'Golo Kante makes the bench, and I sell Claude Makelele. As good as Claude Makelele was, N'Golo Kante is just as good and far more mobile than Makaleli was. So Makaleli gets sold, I'm afraid.
Interesting. Any more, Dan? Are you going to set? Are you going to set?
Yeah. So let's chuck one in.
Who's this for?
Shall we do both of you? Let's do a dirty bastards one. Eh?
We could do a dirty bastard for each one of us. Who's going first? Am I getting the first?
No. I've got 3, and then you two can decide who you start. You're starting in it. So Daniel De Rossi.
Yeah.
Gennaro Gattuso.
Oh.
And then Roy Keane as well, because he's a bit of a dirty git as well, isn't he? So.
Out of those 3, I think Roy Keane starts. Gattuso's not playing. I'm benching the other fella.
De Rossi.
Keane, De Rossi.
I kind of want a world where all 3 of them are in a team. Just go and kill.
But would
Ryan?
that be...
I don't care. Just let them go kill.
Yeah. I mean, Roy Keane can get a goal. Ryan, what do you think of those 3? Because I'm starting Roy Keane in that one.
I'm starting Roy Keane.
Yeah,
Gattuso's on the bench, and I sell De Rossi.
No, Gattuso's going because he was someday maybe shit, someday maybe good. He was. Just...
I was waiting for you to call him a liability to remind you that you picked Nemanja Vidic last week.
I just think he's a red card waiting to happen. Now remind me.
Nemanja Vidic was in your starting centre back last year.
Move on. My life didn't depend on that one. Any more, Dan? Is that it? Are we done on pick, bench, and sell?
Yeah,
mild one tonight.
I think the defensive midfielder is such a what's the way of putting it?
Midfield, full stop, is a difficult position, isn't it?
But at least with central. If we're just talking general central midfielders, I think you could do pick, bench, sell for. We'll be doing it all fucking year. Defensive midfielder is such a specialist role that I don't think there's too many people that you can put on that high of a pedestal because it's such a specialist role.
Yeah. Okay. So next week we'll be
doing
know
if you two agree with that.
Central midfielders. No, I do. Central midfielders next week, which encompasses attacking midfielders, because we're going to be playing a 4-4-2, I think, aren't we?
Well, 4-3 with a holder.
Yeah. So we've got our defensive midfielder. We're looking at midfielders next week. Midfielders that can.
Darren Pratley.
It's going to be your standard. No Ben Watson.
No, I thought Ryan was going to be the one that made the Ben Watson joke. So I'm impressed it was you.
All right, we're going to move on to Plonker stroke pundit of the week. Who's the Plonker or pundit of the week?
Plonker pundit of the week is something I've come up with because I am sick and tired of listening to crap come out of pundits' mouths. And I'm not talking about crap in the sense of they don't agree with my opinion. It's just
they're
sheer
talking shit.
Dumbassery, if you will.
I hope Danny Murphy's on this list.
Well, originally I was going to give it to a Mr. Gabi Abonglahor for announcing on national radio that he takes 20 minutes to boil an egg. Seriously, kid you not.
Really? On Talk Shite?
Yeah, on Talk Sport.
Talk Shite, please get it right.
Yes, it is. I've come to realise it is Talk Shite. I did the winner.
Sorry,
however,
got me.
I know it's amazing, right?
To boil an egg.
Seriously, if you go online and just go through some of the TalkSports videos, you'll stumble across it. However, the winner, to go from humorous to just downright dumb, the winner actually goes to Jim White, also of Talk Shite Radio.
Oh, he just opens his mouth and he's talking bollocks. I've lost both of you.
I'm still here. Sorry, I was too busy chuckling.
We've lost Ryan.
I mean, Ryan's disappeared, but I would.
I'll try and get him back while you comprehend that Gabi Agbonlahor has managed to take 20 minutes to boil an egg. Obviously, not a soft-boiled egg. It's going to be a hard-boiled egg, isn't it?
What the fuck state of that egg when it comes out? Jesus Christ! What's he doing to it?
I don't know. Is he sitting on it trying to hatch the fucker?
It's fucking incredible, that, isn't it? To be honest.
I'm just thinking he's trying to hatch the bastard thing.
While we wait for Ryan, just TalkSport do have, we're still going in the absence of Ryan. TalkSport do have some fucking terrible pundits. Jamie O'Hara is another one that, every time I hear him speak, I'm waiting for something fucking stupid to come out of his gob.
I sit and watch Match of the Day, and when Danny Murphy comes on, two things happen. For a while, I'll sit there and tolerate it and want to punch him, and then I'll switch over because I can't listen to the twat. He's just such a negative. Unless they're wearing a Liverpool shirt, he's just negative. We've lost Ryan completely. He said finish without him, so we're going to finish without him. And Gabby Bonlaw, that I would say is a bit of shithousery right there. TalkSport putting Gabby, but TalkSport are doing this. They've got players like Jamie O'Hara, who failed to achieve what he should have achieved as a footballer, slagging off Tottenham for players for not achieving what they should achieve. I'm not having that, and I'm not having Jamie O'Hara, and I'm not having Gabby Bonlaw. Pair of them can hardly string a sentence together. No, do one, the pair of them. And Danny Murphy, just because I hate Danny Murphy. I detest Danny Murphy with a passion. Dan, shithousery, let's get that done.
Right, this week's shithousery, sadly, it's not as good as last week's shithousery.
Well, I don't think we'll ever... I watched that. That was joyous. And I don't think we can beat the shithousery, the level of shithousery that occurred last week. But carry on.
So last Saturday, this week... We're a worldwide podcast. We've been in Europe. We've been to USA. This week, we're in South America. More in particular, Brazil.
Oh.
Palmeiras, the league leaders, were playing Flamengo.
Yes.
That's a big game in Brazilian football. Two very, very big sides.
Yeah.
We're in added time, in extra time. I assume it was a cup game. And the Palmeiras striker, Davison, some of you might know.
Yeah.
He's having words with a defender of the Flamengo team.
Yeah.
They have a little bit of a scrap. The referee comes over, separates them, and pushes Davison away. Now they take a few steps, and the referee taps Davison on the shoulder. Davison does not see who's tapped him. And flies around on the floor like someone's just shot him from the stand, only to get up and realise the man that's tapped him on the shoulder and he's tried to buy a foul off was the referee, who is then obviously booked him for play acting. Genius. So good try. I appreciate your effort, Davison. However, I mean, you've come up short, but I thought that was quality shithousery. I always can't give a first and a second, so I'll go with my second.
Yeah, go on.
My second goes to, for no apparent reason, I just found this funny. It's not. I don't even know. It's borderline. I think it's shithousery. Some people won't. Aston Villa played Man City last night.
Yeah.
Man City's fans their away end at Aston Villa is just where the Villa boxes are, where hospitality boxes.
Hospitality.
Yeah, one of the Aston Villa fans had printed off a picture of the Champions League with a big X across it and stuck it on the window. So all the Man City fans did for 90 minutes was try to abuse this bloke who kept showing them a picture of the Champions League. Love that one as well. Well played.
On signs, one of my favourite moments of shithousery, Charlton fans, when they went into the press area and unveiled a banner that said liar with an arrow pointing down right where Catherine Mayer, the chief exec, was sitting. That, my friends, is shithousery. That was top stuff. And it was fair comment as well.
I had a good view of that and all.
Fair comment. Where were you?
Up north.
Up the north. Oh, no. Yeah, this was after I'd left. I'm surprised at the commentary team, right where the commentary team was sat, they didn't stop them from doing it. To be honest, I wouldn't have stopped them if I'd have been there.
You were there, weren't you?
No, I wasn't there. No, I'd left by then. I'd gone by then. I'd quit by then. Right, that's pretty much it, I think, for this week. Next week it's midfielders, isn't it? And we'll come up with some other things to talk about. Don't forget to follow Let Us Talk, the mental health charity that use football to break down barriers, and the Proper Blokes Club for men. They're walking. They are adding new walks every single week. Walks all over. Join them both on Facebook. Proper Blokes Club. Go to Facebook, and there are clubs near you popping up now. And her game 2 girls are going well as well, by the way.
Yeah, just to mention, if you do follow the Football Funders on Twitter page, FBall Funders if you don't, we mentioned the Let Us Talk had a game in Eastbourne this weekend. It's been cancelled. We got a bye into the next round as the other team can't fulfil the fixture. So keep an eye on that. We should have some more games, hopefully just after Christmas. So
okay,
we'll keep you updated with that.
Ryan's had to leave us because his computer's shut down. Dan, thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Cheers from me, Pete Finch, and everybody else here at Football Thunders. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Ta-ra.